Hello artists, welcome to your cat on pumpkin painting class. In front of you, you should have your canvas, a cup of water, a large brush and a small brush, a paper towel. For your colors, you should have orange, mustardy yellow, green, purple, blue. You should also have a piece of wax paper that is to mix on later. I put a paper plate underneath mine just so it holds better, but you don't need a paper plate. If you do not have all those materials, not a problem. Just push pause on the video and come back to us whenever you're ready. So the first thing we're going to do for our painting class is we're going to go ahead and wash our brushes. So go ahead and dip both of your brushes into your cup of water, swirl them around, get them nice and clean, and then pat them gently onto your paper towel. And you never want to go straight from water to painting on your canvas. You always want to pat it dry a little bit so your paint doesn't drip. We are going to start with our background, and we're going to start with this blue. Go ahead and grab your smaller brush and your blue paint. You're going to just dip a little bit of it into your blue. If it's dripping, you can always wipe it off on the sides. We're going to outline, kind of like create a bubble around our subject matter. So our cat, our plant, our cups, and our skull, and of course our pumpkin. We're gonna make a nice big bubble that kind of goes around all of them. Let's go ahead and start above the cat's hat. So we're gonna start over here to the right, and we're gonna drag our brush, nice long smooth lines, and kind of go over here to the left. And this outline just kind of lets us know where to stop with our blue background. Also creates nice clean lines. I'm going to go underneath the hat. It's kind of in that little swirly area. If you see any bumps with your paint, you can just kind of go over it to smooth it out. Always can go back for more, just a little bit at a time. I'm going to go above the ear and to the left, go above the hat and below the hat. I'm going to continue on to go to the left of the face, the left of the body. I'll stop where the pumpkin and the cat meet. I'm going to go to the left of the pumpkin, above this plant, below. Then again, above and below. Get into those little areas with your little brush. And then again, kind of above and below. Then you can continue on to the left of your coffee cup or your mug, underneath it, underneath your pumpkin. Underneath the skull. The right of your skull, stop where the leaf and the skull meet. Underneath your plant. Above this area, but not between the two plants, the leaves. And then to the right of the pumpkin. To the right of your cat's body, to the right of its tail. Above its tail area. To the right, underneath, and above. And if you accidentally got some inside that space, not a problem. We're going to paint over it later. Always go back and touch things up, make sure everything's nice and clean. Make sure you've gotten rid of any bumps with your paint. You want it to be nice and smooth. And once you're done, you can go ahead and wash and dry your small brush. And we'll jump to our big brush, and we'll pretty much paint all this background space this light blue. Again, be sure the paint isn't dripping off your brush. You can always just kind of get some off on the side of the container, and do your best to avoid anything inside that bubble, and be sure you're painting in an up and down motion. Start over here to the right. If you ever need to use your smaller brush to get into those smaller areas, you can. Be sure your paint is nice and smooth. You can kind of go over your outline a little bit too to smooth that out, but don't pass that line. And if you're still working on your outline, not a problem, take your time. Just know that when you are done, you'll be jumping to your big brush and that same light blue and painting the background. We'll also be painting the 4 sides of our canvas here in just a moment. Start down here underneath. And then I'll kind of start working my way to the left. Start down here in the bottom left corner. Once I'm done with painting the 4 sides, I will go back and give this blue a second coat, which means I'm gonna give it some time to dry while I'm painting the 4 sides, and then I'll go back a second time on top, just kind of touch it up, make that blue a little bit more solid where you won't see as much of those streaky lines and the white of the canvas poking underneath. So after I'm done with the 4 sides, I'll come back and give my blue a second coat. And carefully, once you're done, you can start painting the bottom part, the top part in an up and down motion, getting all your sides nice and clean. It just looks better when you hang it on the wall when the sides are also painted. Start painting the side. Just be careful whenever you're lifting it up. I might just give this another minute to dry, and I'll go back and give it a second coat. But again, take your time. Remember, you can always push pause and come back to the video whenever you're ready. Just give mine just another moment. Usually I probably give it another couple minutes or so, but I'm gonna go in there with a second coat just for video's sake. You should probably start your second coat where you started previously, just because that's gonna be the most dry area. It'll be easier to lay a second coat on top. It's gonna be a little bit more dry. You can start painting the four sides as well. Give it those as a nice second coat. And when you're done, you can go ahead and wash and dry your brushes. When you're done, you are going to jump to painting your pumpkin. Just remember though, if a wet color touches another wet color, it's gonna mix and blend. So just be aware of your blue and your orange for your pumpkin that we're gonna use next, touching each other and blending. So if you wanted to give your blue a couple minutes to dry where it's not so shiny, you can, or just be super careful. With our small brush, I'm gonna put that light blue aside. I'm gonna bring over the orange. Move this, and be sure your brushes are nicely washed and dried. Make sure all of that pale blue is off of the brushes. I'll start with my small brush and my orange, and I'm gonna outline around the nose area and around the mouth area. Also, I'm gonna outline on the outside of the eye area. and the other eye area. Once I'm done, I'm gonna start outlining the left side of my pumpkin. And again, be very careful. You don't want a white space between the blue and the orange, so be sure you're coming just where the blue kind of sits. And again, be very careful if your blue is still wet. I'm gonna go underneath this area. I'll go to the left of this line, the right of this line. Get pretty close to it. Continue underneath the cat. So continue to the right of the pumpkin with the jack-o'-lantern. This part gets a little tricky because you're going to go to the right of the handle and above kind of the cup or the mug area. And you'll have this little space right here that you're going to outline, and you can go ahead and fill it in with your small brush. So again, I went around the nose, the eyes, and around the rest of the pumpkin. And the mug area. I'm gonna put this aside. And once you're ready, you can use your small brush or your big brush. Just be very careful to stay inside where the pumpkin is. You don't want to go on the outside of our outline. Just a little bit of paint, not too much on there. You can wipe some up on the side. Start painting in that area. Again, if you wanted to jump to your small brush to get into those smaller areas, you can. And when I paint my pumpkin, I do kind of curve, almost like a C shape on the left side and on a backward C shape on the right side, just to kind of show the curve of the pumpkin, so it looks a little bit more round with my paint stroke. So more of a C and backward C. Just be sure you're staying inside of your pumpkin area. And in the middle, it's more going to be up and down. So as you kind of reach the middle area, you'll be working your brush more up and down. And if you want, you can give this orange another coat too, if you want it to be a little bit more solid, to where you can't see the paintbrush strokes as much. Just give it a minute or two to dry where it's not so shiny, and go back over it with a second coat. If you need to, you can always go back and outline your pumpkin with your small brush and your orange paint, just to make sure the lines are clean. And later on, we'll go in there with black and outline it. So you have your blue background and your orange pumpkin. Then you can go ahead and wash and dry your brush, or your brushes. orange side. You can even wrap your paper towel around your brushes so you get all that paint off all the way around. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to paint the hat purple. And again, we're going to use our small brush to outline. We can use our bigger brush to fill in. We'll also make black lines on it or stripes on it later, but for now we want to just paint the whole thing purple. I'll start to the right of the hat, so I'm just going to make this kind of shape over here. It's almost like a triangle shape, and same on the left side. Then you can go ahead and use your small brush to kind of paint. Let me bring the purple over. So small brush, outline the left and the right. Excuse me, the left and the right. Go ahead and fill it in. And fill it in. And then go into the space a little bit. And you want to kind of still see your pencil line up here above the cat's head so you can outline it later. I'm getting to little areas, so I can go ahead and just fill in that left side as well, and that right side. I'm gonna go. You don't want to go into the space right here because that is not the hat. You want to just kind of stay to the left and to the right of the cat's ear. So to the left, line to the right. Do not pass this point right here, and do not pass this point right here. I'm just going to start following the line so you can actually go over your pencil line at this point. If you accidentally get some purple over here, you can let it dry. Add white on top of it to white it out. And once that white's dry, you can go back and add some more of that light blue. Put this brush aside for a moment. And I'll jump to my big brush, my purple paint. I will kind of follow the curve of the hat. Get rid of any bumps, make sure it's nice and smooth. Go more side to side down here. Just kind of go underneath that ear. And again, I would probably do 2 coats of this purple. It's pretty thin, but if you want it a little bit lighter, you can keep this purple. But that second coat's also going to make it a little bit darker, and you won't be able to see the white behind it as much. And once you're done with your purple or your 2 coats of purple, go ahead and wash and dry your brushes again. Make sure they're really clean because we're going to go into the white skull next. Be sure your orange is nice and dry before you go into the white skull, but our skull is just going to be done with our small brush. Again, be sure it's nice and clean, and our white paint. So I'll put this purple aside. And again, if you're still working on your purple, you're welcome to push pause on the video. I'm going to be super careful of that orange because it still looks kind of shiny. I'm just going to outline the shape of the skull. I'm going to go over the pencil line. And then I'll just go kind of on the outside of these 2 eye socket spaces. And later on, we'll add a little nose on there. I notice that we'll be adding on. So go ahead and fill in all this space right here. So once you're done outlining this skull, you can use your small brush because it's such a small area to fill in. Then you can go ahead and wash and dry your small brush. So blue background, orange pumpkin, purple hat, white skull. Once you are done, you are going to start painting that mug with your really pretty mustardy yellow. I'm gonna grab my small brush, be sure it's nice and clean, make sure there's not too much on there, you can wipe it off on the sides. And on this bottom kind of lip of your mug, you're gonna add yellow and go over your pencil line, here to the left, on the bottom, to the right. You can also go over your pencil line. We'll outline it in black later on. Make sure there's not too much on there. Just gonna go above and below this line right here. Bring that line down. So I've gone underneath this lip, to the left, to the right, to the bottom. Just kind of curved around this line right here. I'm also gonna go to the top lip area right here. And then the handle. Be sure that your pumpkin's nice and dry. And some of your pencil might smudge, that's totally fine. Kind of gives it a little bit of like a shadowy effect. Or an outline as well. Once you're done, you do not have to paint inside of your mug, but just this area you'll fill in with your small brush. And again, as usual, you can do 2 coats. So you have your mustardy yellow mug. Make sure everything's nice and smooth. I'm working in an up and down motion when I fill it in. In the inside of my mug, I am going to use that same mustardy yellow, get a scoop of it on my wax paper. I'm gonna wash and dry my brush, and then go into the white. So it's a scoop of mustardy yellow and white, and you're gonna just kind of make this lighter, kind of pumpkin spicy kind of look, and then you can just fill in the center part with that lighter. Color. Again, you can do 2 coats if you like. Get it nice and filled. So again, small brush, nice and clean, scoop of mustardy yellow, wash and dry, scoop of white, mix it, and then go ahead and outline and fill in the top part of your mug. This a second coat, might still be too wet. And once you're done, you can go ahead and wash and dry your brush. You can put your mustardy yellow back. The next step is going to be with our small brush to start off with again, and our green paint, and that'll be our leafy greens or our plant life. And then I'm gonna kind of do the same thing I've been doing, kind of going in there and filling in each part of the puzzle. So I'm gonna use my small brush, my green paint to outline and fill in. Be careful of any other wet paints. I'll use my small brush to outline, and I think I'm gonna jump to my big brush to fill in. And again, I would probably give this green 2, maybe even 3 coats. 2 to make sure it's pretty solid. It's a pretty thin paint. So for now, I'm just going in with my small brush and my green paint. Put this aside for just a moment. Jump to my green paint. Maybe just kind of paint it in a side-to-side motion. Be very careful, stay inside of those outlines. Just kind of painting side to side from one line to the other. And again, I would probably go back and give those a second coat. And you can go ahead and wash and dry. And again, if you're working on any of these parts, you're welcome to pause the video. I think while I'm waiting for those to dry, I'm gonna go back and give my purple another coat. So I'm gonna just use my big brush and my purple paint and give this a nice second coat. There's a huge difference with the purple on the first and the second coat. Space a little bit better. Give it another coat as well. Can kind of work with the curve of the hat. Wash and dry. Once you're done, you can start outlining the cat with gray paint, and it's just going to be used using our small brush and a mix of black and white to make a pretty close gray to our pencil lead gray. And I'll show you how. So small brush, again, make sure it's nice and clean. I'm going to take 1, 2, 3, 4 scoops of white. I'm gonna wash my brush really well. Again, you can wrap it in the paper towel, make sure everything is nice and off of there. So 4 scoops of white with my small brush onto my wax paper, and then just like a dot of black, and mix it and make it a nice, almost like a pencil lead gray. And once you're done mixing, you can just kind of wipe off the sides so you don't have too much gray on there. And I'm going to start outlining the cat. So wherever I see my pencil mark, I'm going to go over it with my gray paint. So I'll start over here on the left side. Oh. And I'll work my way to the right and be aware of wet, shiny paints. And I don't want to see any space between my blue paint and my gray paint. Make sure the two are touching at this point. Go in there to the shape of the tail. Nice, long, smooth lines. I'll go over that kind of hand or the arm areas. Just go right over these pencil marks. If your orange is still wet, be very careful. Remember, that was 4 scoops of white and just a little dot of black. And you can always go back and make it lighter if you wanted to add more white to it. If you wanted to get it darker, add just a little bit of black. A little bit of black paint goes a long way. And above the pumpkin, I'm gonna make 1, 2, 3 lines right there. Small brush. I'm gonna carry this gray over. Be careful if your purple's still wet. And I'll go underneath this line a little bit. You can still kind of see it peeking through. I also want to outline the shape of the ears, so I'm gonna go in there with my small brush. Be very careful if you have wet, shiny purple paint. Maybe give it some extra time to dry before you go in there and outline with gray. And then I'm also gonna go in there over the eyes. I'm gonna make it a gray. So I'm gonna go over my pencil lines with my gray paint. And I'll actually outline and fill in the nose with gray. Outline and fill in the mouth area with gray. Once you are done, you are gonna paint your cat black. So you can use your small brush for smaller areas and big brush for bigger areas. And you can go over your gray a little bit. You still kind of want some of it be peeking through, but just a little bit. That gray will kind of help separate it from all the other areas so it's not blending in with the hat or anything else. But I'll start right here with my small brush, my black paint. So again, I'm just having a little bit kind of exposed with the gray, but mostly covered up with black. So I'm just gonna go in there. You can still see a little bit of that gray popping through, but again, mostly some black. And you can kind of go over it a little bit here or there, but you'll definitely see some peeking through. Then once you're done, you can use your small brush or your big brush to kind of go in there and fill in the rest. If you see any wet, shiny spots, maybe avoid them for a little bit. But again, you are overlapping here and there over your gray, but still a little bit's peeking through. Just a very thin line, so it kind of separates the cat from everything else. I'll show you on the tail a little bit better since it's a bigger area. So I'm just using my small brush for now. If you wanted to ever jump to your big brush, you could. But again, just a tiny bit of gray is peeking through. You can always go back and add more gray if you want. I would definitely recommend going back and giving it 2 coats of black so it's nice and dark. Start with my small brush and over here to the left. Barely any gray showing through, but you still definitely see some peeking through right here. Continue on down here. Again, I'm just using my small brush, but if you're very careful, you can jump to your big brush at some points. Definitely want to see that separation of the arm. And work down on the body area. Again, I don't want any thick lines. I want to kind of make those lines nice and thin. Just kind of drag your brush. Be very careful. You can always go back and add more gray if you got rid of too much. Just wait for that black to dry so you can build the gray on top of it. Definitely want to thin out that line right there. And this is where it gets really tight with your lines. So when you go around the eyes, the nose, the mouth, you don't want to get rid of those. You're just kind of working around those areas. I'll show you as I'm getting closer. So I just want to kind of work with the curve, go around. Looks like my eye area is still a little bit wet, so I might give those a little bit more time to dry. Go around this mouth and nose area very carefully. Maybe thinning it out just a little bit. And again, you can always go back and add more gray lines if you need to. Just be sure the black's nice and dry. Go back and touch some of these areas up. Get them nice and clean. While that's kind of drying, I think I'm gonna go back and give some things another coat. Just be sure when you do, you are aware of wet colors. Be sure you're taking your time and really going in there and making things nice and neat. Go in there and make these a little more green. Touching up all the areas. Go back and give this another coat so it's just that much more solid. And here in a moment I'll start adding some black outlines and small details. I want to go ahead and get this area nice and cleaned up before I start putting the last little touches to the painting. So anything you wanted to go back and give it another coat to, again, be very aware of what colors. All right. Once you're done, really clean off your brushes. We're gonna kind of start going into our black. We're gonna make sure all the other colors are off, get them nice and clean. I'm gonna start by filling in the eyes, the nose, and the mouth of our pumpkin, or now our jack-o'-lantern. We're gonna start kind of adding all those details. And I am gonna go over my pencil line because I do not wanna see the pencil line poking through. It's gonna fill it in. Do a little bit of a curve to your brush. So you're gonna outline and fill in the two eyes with your small brush and your black paint. Same with the nose area. You're gonna outline and fill in. Same with the mouth, you want to cover up that pencil. go in there and fill in, and again, you can come back and give those another coat. You'll do the same thing for the eyes of your skull. You're going to outline it and fill it in. Go over your pencil, outline and fill in. For the nose, you're just going to push down on your brush. So you've outlined and filled in the two eyes, and all I'm going to do is come between the two eyes and come down a little bit. I'm just going to push on my brush just a little bit, like so. And if it got too big, just let it dry and you can kind of white out whatever you don't want. We're just gonna push down with your small brush. Once you are done, you can continue to start kind of outlining your painting. You're gonna start outlining the pumpkin shape. Small brush black paint. And remember, when you outline, the harder you push, the thicker the line becomes. So you just wanna be on the tippy toes of your small brush, barely pushing down. And you can even dip it into the water, pat on your paper towel 4 or 5 times and bring it to a twist to make it a little pointier. But small brush black paint just a little bit, and we are going to start outlining our pumpkin or our jack-o'-lantern shape. I'm going to go over the pencil lines to left to the right, and then I'll kind of go over my orange just a little bit and clean up. And clean up where the orange and the blue meet. And then underneath the cat, a little bit underneath the gray, you can still see some kind of poking through. Gonna go over that pencil line. I'll keep on kind of going underneath the cat. A little bit of gray still poking through. Go over the pencil mark. Go underneath the cat. Like so. I'm going to go ahead and start outlining the skull as well. So pretty much where I see the pencil mark. I'm just on the tippy toes of my small brush. You barely want to push down on it. I'm just pushing just a little bit. I'm going to make sure my leaves are pretty dry. I don't want them to be too wet, but once they're nice and dry, you can start outlining them where the pencil line is. And that'll kind of clean up that shape. You have 1, 2 on the right side, and 1, 2, 3 on the left side. And then you'll go over your green just a little bit. Nice long smooth lines, just be on the tippy toes of your small brush. Once you're done, you can start outlining your mug. The top part of your mug, you can just kind of make that lip on the top, on the bottom, and then kind of like that football. It'll make kind of like a football shape. So that top kind of inside area where your coffee is. And then you can start kind of outlining the left. My brush is getting kind of dry, so I'm gonna get a little bit more wet, maybe bring it to a nice point. Then go back over it. Underneath. Above. I'm gonna go all the way down. Go over that pencil line from before. And then go on the inside of the handle and on the outside of the handle. Once you're done, you are gonna go back to your small brush and your black paint. And for the cat area, I am just gonna do little sweeps here and there on my gray a little bit, kind of creating little furry areas. So I'm just kind of cutting up some of the gray line with just some sweeps of gray. You can get your brush nice and clean. And all it is just like little pushes, just a little bit, and I'm just kind of sweeping with my brush, kind of creating those thin feathery lines and just kind of moving in the motion of those gray lines. So I'm just kind of going over it just a little bit of sweeps. You want to kind of stay on top of those gray areas. Kind of work that in here. It's kind of creating a little bit of texture. You're not going to really do it over the mouth or the eye area. You'll leave those gray. You're also going to outline your hat. Be sure that the hat's nice and dry. Underneath it. And I'll just kind of go to the left and to the right. And then again, I'll kind of go to the left and to the right. I'll actually go underneath that gray a little bit, underneath the ears. I'll go to the left and to the right. Again, over here to the left and to the right, but don't pass the hat area. I'm gonna kind of keep inside that area. And then I'm gonna outline the shape of the hat. My purple's still a little bit wet, so be very careful too if yours is still wet. And then I'm gonna come up and around like so. And I'm gonna start adding some detail on top of the leaves. And then I'll go back once my purple's a little bit more dry and add some stripes. So for my leaves, I'm gonna kind of split them in half. So you can start with the point and just gonna split them in half. Split it in half. Split it in half. Split them in half. And split them in half. This one can have a little bit of a curve if you like. And be very careful whenever you do the next step, because you just really want to be on the tippy toes of your brush. But it's almost like I'm going in there and making a V shape inside each leaf. So on the left side, I'm going to come down, and maybe come down just on the right side right here, and maybe some on the right side. But you can have them as V's, or just kind of have some going between each other. It doesn't have to be like a perfect V shape. But you definitely want the two lines to be coming down almost at a point, so they can kind of create that V shape, or there can be kind of like a split between them where one's a little bit lower down. Same with this side. You're gonna come down, come down, come down, come down. You can have one kind of on its own. And you'll see those lines coming down towards that center. I would probably want my purple to be a little bit drier, but just for video's sake, I am going to go in there and add some stripes to my hat. Again, be sure yours is a little bit drier than mine. And I'm going to start over here. And remember, the harder you push on your brush, the thicker the lines become. So if you want your lines to be a little bit thicker, push a little bit harder. Leave a good amount of space between each stripe. I think I want my stripes to be about that thick. Do your best to stay inside of that hat shape. It's kind of swirling all the way around. And again, I would usually let mine dry a little bit more before I started adding the stripes. This one's kind of a funny shape, but I'm going all the way from one side to the other. But it also kind of works with that curve. And then my last one, I'm gonna kind of make it a little bit more straight. So just kind of curves with the hat. Come up a little bit more on that side. So cute. Once you're done with the stripes, you can go ahead and wash and dry your small brush really well. You want all that black to be off of it. You can, again, use your paper towel to go all the way around. Oops, excuse me. Get it nice and clean. I am gonna add some kind of hot steam coming off from my coffee. You do wanna make sure this area is nice and dry. So whenever you're ready, you wanna use your small brush and your white paint just a little bit and add some wavy lines. So I'm gonna go kind of in the middle of where my coffee is. I'm gonna go to the right, kind of come up almost like an S curve, but kind of going straight up at the end. And to the left of it, a smaller version. So I'm gonna go a little bit to the left, kind of make that little mini line right there. While I have my white on my small brush, I'll go in there and just kind of add a little bit of white just to the right side, maybe the bottom half, and kind of work with that curve, and maybe another little mini line right there, and that just kind of shows where the light's kind of gleaming on it a little bit more. So cute. If you wanted to, you can also add a little bit of white, kind of working down the cat's tail. You wanted to kind of work on the body. This is absolute to you. It just kind of adds a little bit of light here and there. It's just little sweeps to kind of show where the light might be hitting the cat as well. You can even add some on the ears, but that's totally optional. And they're kind of very random. So there's some on the ear, to the right side of the ear. Kind of work with the left side of the body, to the right side of the tail, right side of this back leg. Absolutely up to you. You can even add a little bit of white in the nose, kind of here to the right, kind of making a little slant with the shape of the nose. If you wanted to add a little bit of white on top of the eye area, you could too. So we kind of went in there with black as a shade, and add some white as a tone. So we're kind of making some of the light areas, or excuse me, as a tint, we're making some of those areas a little bit lighter. And once you are done, you can go ahead and wash your two brushes. If you wanted to touch anything up, you definitely can. Just be aware of any shiny wet spots. But otherwise, you are all done with your cat on pumpkin painting class. Thank you so much, artists, for joining us, and hopefully we will see you soon.